Hey, we're talking with James Finlen, and we're about to have a really fun conversation about where James is and what he wants and where he wants to go and what he wants to be. And he has all these goals and dreams and a mission and passion. So James is going to tell me and tell us all about that and get some ideas set down, get it on the permanent record like they do in school. And that way, in the coming months and years, we can put it out and people can see what James has done and how far he's come. So, James, glad to be speaking with you.
Glad to be here, Robert. Thank you.
You're very welcome. And so tell me about your burning desire. Tell me about what exciting times are ahead and what you're working on.
Yeah. So it's February 2nd, 2024, Robert, and I hope to be able to look back at this conversation in a year and see, how accurate my plan was with where I am at that time. So I've really been drilling down, trying to ask myself the question, how do my talents or gifts, how are they best utilized to, serve other people who might want to gain some momentum in a certain area. And I've landed on teachers, Robert. Not only teachers, because that's my background for 20 years, teaching and coaching. So teachers, coaches, and even more recruiting new people to the teaching profession. And the reason I love this, other than my background being in this area, is I feel that teaching provides you with the most valuable experience and set of skills to translate into real world market value. So I want to help teachers, existing teachers, and those who may be looking for a specific career path. I want to help them to make that connection between, yes, teaching can be a struggle at times, it can be difficult, but through that challenge or that adversity of trying to get 30 students or 10 players on the same page to accomplish specific things, that struggle becomes your strength. So I think it's a bit of a paradigm shift, right? But that's the key to me. If we view our pathway to teaching or our experience in teaching as something that better positions us to accomplish our dreams, it changes everything. So that's what really gets me going about it. And my background in teaching and coaching, I really enjoy presenting material and trying to engage an audience. That's always been a passion. So this not only allows me to serve teachers, but recruit new teachers and do what I love, which is teach and coach. So that's where I'm at, Robert. And it's pretty exciting because even if it just turns out to be a 1 year experiment, I feel that it's going to allow me to sharpen my skills even further and to start to just cultivate some of these new skills in marketing and sales that are so important. And I want to communicate to people that sales may have a bit of a poor reaction in the mind of some people, but if you have something to sell or to offer that helps them to achieve a goal, then you're doing them a disservice by not bringing that to the market. And that's really what I feel is that teachers to see their skill set as not only serving a purpose in the classroom, but serving a purpose outside of the classroom.
I love it. So it connects to all these other areas, and there are transferable skills that help so much. And you think of what a teacher does, there's this built-in element of leadership, of public speaking, of dealing with the noise and dealing with all the difficulties and struggles. And even like you're mentioning here, some of these sales skills of communicating a message well and expressing empathy and saying, well, if I'm teaching algebra to all these kids that, well, they don't really care because they're not excited about it. So I have to get their attention and get them entertained and make them realize how this is important and kind of take them on a path and follow through and follow up and all these other things. And so teaching can be fun, is basically what you're saying. And teaching can be this journey that helps you out and enhances all these other life skills and makes you a better, stronger, and smarter person. And so you say that your mission is to recruit more teachers. So who is the person that you're looking to attract here? Are you talking about someone that maybe is uncertain about a career or maybe should be doing teaching or is not sure? Like, where's the typical person at that says, I need me some of that James Finlen excitement about teaching? What's the starting point for that type of person?
Yeah, so there's so many people out there, Robert, that I think are kind of in that gap. They they want to go somewhere, they want to go somewhere great, they want to have a purpose, they want to achieve their dreams, but with all the distractions, it's hard to really pin down what's the best path. And we know that you have to develop the skills and you have to get the experience that really matters. So I feel that the potential customer here is such a wide variety of people. It could be a student graduating from high school that doesn't quite know where they want to go, or may have signed up to do something just because they're trying to follow the footsteps of their parents. Or it could be that young man or young lady who's been out of school for a few years and just kind of floating around. So that obviously would require a bigger commitment, go to school, get a degree. But there's a lot of people with degrees that just haven't used them. And a lot of states have pathways for people with degrees to transition into teaching without going back to school. So there's a real opportunity there. There's teacher shortages everywhere. So there's districts that are hungry for these opportunities to recruit and retain new teachers. And so there's a wide variety of potential customers here.
Okay, so what sort of emotions would this sort of person be going through? Like, you say that there are teaching opportunities and maybe they already have a degree, so it's not that much extra of a hurdle to get that teaching job. But are they the kind of person that maybe like teaching would fix their life path, or would teaching like give them a greater sense of purpose, or just like what do you think is keeping this sort of person awake at night at the moment?
A lack of understanding how what they're doing today translates into some of their hopes and dreams. So I think certainly to help somebody to see not only how your job waiting tables uh, gives you the opportunity to develop your customer service skills, to ask better questions, provide better service. So, what you're doing every day gives you tremendous opportunity to work on the most important skills that transfer to every effective CEO or leader in the world: communication, right? So there's opportunities every day, but to take it a step further, everybody at some point is going to be asked to teach somebody something. A parent teaching a child something, or showing them, illustrating what they would like for them to do for their chores, or showing them how to progress through school. There's multiple applications for how teaching shows up on a day-to-day basis in the real world. So if you're going to take a step into any profession, and you recognize that we just don't go from where we are now to our dream, there's a road we have to take. And if you can see teaching and those skills as the best path, because literally illustrating a concept, not just talking about it, but sharing a story, illustrating it, bringing it to life. These are the things that are so important, especially in today's world, to capture the attention of somebody. Whereas you and I know that there's attention is essentially the new economy, right? The companies that can, or the organizations that can present their purpose, their product in a way that captures somebody's attention is going to be successful. And if you have a product or service that people need and that can help them get where they want to go, then you're doing them a disservice by not bringing that in a way that engages them.
I like that a lot. And I also like how you mentioned this idea that whatever you're doing, do a good job of it. Even if you're waiting tables, there are like subtasks you can focus on. You can think of, how can I better my game? How can I give good customer service? How can I be better at, say, if you're waiting tables, you're managing all sorts of things at once. So how can I just optimize and improve what I'm doing? And then also something that comes to mind as you're mentioning all this is that when you teach something, you have to go back to the basics and you really make sure that you have complete mastery by having everything covered, especially these essentials. Like, you think when you first learned to tie your shoes, it was really awkward and you had to learn all these loops and things. And then as you became an adult, it just became something that you never thought about. But then when you're teaching the younger generation how to tie their shoes, then you kind of have to revisit it, right? And you have to say, oh, I didn't think about it, but wait, did I loop this and that? You have to kind of revisit what began all of it. And you mentioned in here this whole idea of hopes and dreams, right? That people have their hopes and dreams, and teaching can reawaken that, especially because you are also helping out with the hopes and dreams of others, which also helps you. So tell me about your hopes and dreams, James. Like, what led you to being a teacher, and what sort of things have you accomplished?
Well, I actually, what led me to teaching was coaching, because I know I had a passion for basketball, and basketball had such a tremendous impact on my life and helped to change the direction of my life, because my coach, um, he gave me a chance as a junior when others may have thought that I didn't deserve it because I was a bit of a rebel. Okay. And so coach took a chance by saying, hey, look, we all make mistakes. We all, may veer down the wrong path. But I think he recognized the the strength of team, and and of course working hard at something to get better at it. So he brought me into that team, put me in a good environment around other teenagers that were trying to do better. And you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with, and that was exactly what rang true during those years. I became a better person because I was around people who were trying to do better, right? We just that had aspirations to go to college or just do something better. So the opportunity to give back and give other children the opportunity that my coach gave me was essentially the driving force. And that was probably my hallmark, or my MO as a coach, is I was always looking to give opportunities to those who other coaches might have said no, trouble, you know. So I was that guy, and I would always try to create those opportunities. And it was the same as a special education teacher, recognizing that we've all made mistakes. Let's not be judgmental. Let's look at those mistakes as part of our strength. We went through an experience. If we learn from it, it becomes a strength. Okay, success is the result of learning from failure, right? So if we learn from it and we try to begin again better the next time, then we're successful. But it's not something we ever achieve. It's something we have to work at every day. So that's what led me to teaching, was essentially wanting to give back in the way my coach gave back to me. And so that's what brings me here today. And I think, going back to your question about who the target market is or who I'm looking to help, it would very well probably be, as God would have it, it would be those kids like me who might need a little extra coaching, or those young adults who might need somebody to say, hey, look, I believe in you. All right, your past struggle is your strength. If you learn from it, how can we set some goals here today that help you to move forward in the most productive way?
Amazing. So you're giving back, and especially with these principles of, you mentioned teamwork and hard work, and you also mentioned this word opportunity. And I love that word, right? Because there's so much built into it. If something is an opportunity, it is special, it is important, it's something that's like concrete. And when you have an opportunity to have a position in a sports team, if you have a job opportunity, an opportunity for college, these are all important things. And I looked up real quick. This opportunity means a good position, chance, or prospect as an advancement or success. So I was thinking about that as you're mentioning just an opportunity is, and you said giving opportunities to these kids so that way they can succeed, and you're not hogging all the spotlight for yourself in whatever context it is. And so you're saying that by helping out these other kids and maybe not keeping them from mistakes, but you say, well, I myself have gone through my own mistakes, so now I'm passing on my advice to you. And so as far as you and being a teacher, in any kind of new environment, there are the awkward years. And so was there an awkward phase for you? Like, were the first few years of you as a teacher a struggle? And is there anything that you learned as far as just going from it being something new and scary, transitioning into being a teacher is just a fun job? Like, what were those first few years like for you?
Well, you recognize that your training in college, it's important, but you are not prepared fully for, the challenge of managing all those dynamics. Experience is the best teacher. So there's a bit of a transition period where you recognize that you're not starting at square one, but the only way you're going to really learn and master the profession is by persevering through the challenges. It can be very challenging to capture the attention of a child who has not prioritized their education at all. You have to learn how to speak to more than just the education, more than just the academics. So an example would be, as a special education teacher, I assisted in an algebra class, and there was a student who slept every day. And so I took him out in the hallway and I said, hey, listen, algebra didn't excite me much when I was in high school. I didn't do very well in algebra, and I understand that you might not see how it applies to life. But the main goal for you here today is to learn self-discipline. Force yourself to do what you don't feel like doing when you need to do it, because that ability to grind it out and to do the small things that you don't feel like, that's going to help you to be successful in any career. And you cannot be successful without it. You might go viral and have a good week or a good month, but if you want to sustain it over the long term, then you have to develop self discipline, which is like a muscle, right? You have to work it out, you have to practice it, you have to almost embrace doing those things that you don't feel like. You have to get in that habit. So once he understood how just by raising his hand, asking questions, turning in the homework, staying awake, once he realized how that translated into his success in another area, then he was up, he was engaged, and he ended up doing pretty well in that class. So I would say that reaching those types of students, that's something when you go in, you don't have it. They don't tell you about that. You don't have a class for that. You have classroom management strategies. You understand that you want all students to be on task. And these things are very helpful. Writing objectives, understanding Bloom's taxonomy, and how you want to lead students to think at higher levels, but on a human to human level, reaching that deeper sense of people and motivating them to make the connection between what they're doing right now and their future. That's something that you have to develop, and I would probably say that's my strength out of anything. Treat somebody like they're capable of becoming. Identify their strength, even if it's just one, and help to affirm that and help them to see what's possible by treating them like they're capable of becoming.
That's wonderful. This whole idea of building the muscle so that way someone can just see past the difficulty that they have to deal with. Like, let's say if you were out of shape and you were looking down a football field and you said, I can only run halfway down the football field, versus if you push through it and you ran and you practiced, and eventually you could run to the other end of the football field, and then you'd be looking at the end there and saying like, hey, that's as far as I can run. And so the kids these days, maybe they're too nearsighted, right? They're just looking at the work I have to do right now, and then they're letting themselves get discouraged. And you're kind of breaking them out of their pattern and say, hey, I know that what you have to do right now, you have to do these math problems. Like it sucks. And you'd expect me as the teacher to say, hey, just do the work, or hey, this is fun. And of course, they know it's not fun, but you're saying, hey, I'm treating you like a human. I'm being real with you. And I'm saying, can we look past it? Can we say that, well, right now you do have to do the work, but afterwards you get to go to recess and you get to go home. And even later on, you get to pass the class. And later on, you get to graduate. You get to have a career. You have these many amazing things for you in the future, as long as you can do the work right now and somehow emotionally justify yourself to get motivated and make it happen. So I really am appreciating some of these really quick stories that you're mentioning to help us power through. And as far as what you've accomplished lately in your teaching career, what sort of maybe humble brags do you have in the past few months? Like, since you and me, James, we're all about building the muscle, overachieving, and bettering your best, and always remaining hungry. What sort of recent victories have you had?
Well, actually, and I know we haven't gotten down to details, Robert, but like we said, it's February 2nd, 2024. And just 7 months ago, my business that I started about a decade ago got to a point where I had to make a decision between continuing to teach or taking on my business full time. So I made the decision to pivot to my business and be self-employed. So that's the past 7 months. However, before that, the past my final 2 years teaching, I, as I said, special education, but I had the severe and profound class, right? So the students I had were they were they had the most needs in the entire school in terms of care. They needed self care, right? They needed us to really care for them on the most uh, intimate level, bathroom needs, different things. So, but I would say that experience, as far as a highlight, right, as far as a humbling experience, but also understanding the tremendous value that those kids have to offer. If you want to put life in perspective, or you want to just smile and have fun and laugh and be around, um, I think, the most gifted people in the entire world, because who can brighten somebody's day like that? But I had the best time, and I recognized the tremendous gifts of those children. And as I paired them up with other students from classes in the mainstream, I would pair them up kind of like a buddy system, and they would walk in the hallway or they would go to lunch together, to see the effect it had on these other students, right? To see how their lives were enriched. So if I learned something from that experience, it's, if you have students in your school who might be thinking about themselves too much, or who might need to understand a little bit more about life, and more outside of their bubble, pair them up with these special needs students and let them develop relationships, because nothing will give you a greater understanding and appreciation for other people, and just the opportunities that we all have here. But that last 2 years was my best 2 years, and those students, I still maintain in my personal business. I still maintain a relationship with that student population through my business. So it meant a lot, and that was very rewarding. Yes.
That's great. And a common theme I'm getting from speaking with you now and just from knowing you a little bit lately is how important people skills are and how important relationships are. And it's a tricky subject, right? Because some people are born with this kind of skill and they don't think much of it. And other people maybe don't have the skill as developed, and then they don't really see the value, or sometimes it's easy to get caught in the work and the tasks, and then you wonder why you sometimes get left over, or passed over, or left behind, or just in other ways just frustrated, just and it's hard to explain, and it's hard to teach, other than just building the muscle and being a nice person and caring about others, and reaching out and following up and those sorts of things. And so you mentioned about how this is we're recording this video on this date to look back on the future. So what is your future plan with this sort of time capsule that we're creating? What do you hope to accomplish? And do you have a set date that you plan on looking back on what we're creating right now?
Well, I like it for this reason. Um, I'm very grateful in my faith, because I went down the wrong path, and I had these people come into my life and give me these opportunities, and it just always felt like, the right person or the right opportunity. The timing was so impeccable. It only increased my faith. What I'd like to show or demonstrate here, what I hope to demonstrate, is that it took me 10 years of line upon line, precept upon precept, just learning how to crawl and then learning how to walk. And, now I'm learning how to run. But that was a decade. And I had to really commit and grind out some tough times. I had to seek mentors and work for free, to I did that by choice because I wanted some real world experience, right? But then that led to my own real clients. And it doesn't happen overnight, but in a decade, a lot can change. So, what I'd like to demonstrate is here I am today, again, February 2nd, 2024, after essentially one decade of working hard to develop these skills and this market value. So, what I'd like to show is that after a decade of being trusted with a little and then getting here, let's see what God can do with it, a year from today or 2 years from today, because I was patient and I was not over ambitious in that decade, right? So I think that's how it works. If you want to achieve your dream, be willing to commit to that decade of sacrifice. You're going to have to sacrifice weekends. You're going to have to sacrifice some things. But if you do that for a decade, then you could be sitting in a position where you have a clear vision, or at least a very clear idea of your direction. And now that you have that and you have the skills, you can really turn it up and go from crawling to walking to running. So I want to try to run now, and I want God to have the glory, right? So it maybe in a year, somebody can look back and say, if this thing has grown, because there's really nothing today, Robert, other than pages of my notes and pages of my slides that I've made to teach this stuff. So let's see what can be created after that decade of being patient. Let's see what can happen in a year or two, and let's give God the glory, because it's his, right? And let's see what he can do with it, because if his will be done, that's my thing. And I don't push faith on anybody, but I certainly mine has been strengthened through this last decade, and I hope that whatever happens is something that gives him the glory.
I love it. And you think about the Malcolm Gladwell, the 10,000 hours, and if you divide that, I know you're the algebra teacher, if you divide the 10,000 hours by a decade, that's 1,000 hours every year. You divide that by 50-ish weeks, that's 20 hours a week. So you do your main career, and instead of partying or instead of watching TV just 4 hours a day, you develop these skills and you have these raw materials, and that's what you've done. And now it's time to get to that next phase, that next step, and repackage these raw materials that you have. That way that you can help others and you can see some results from what you've experienced because you've gotten this far. And so how do we wrap this thing up, James? Like, do we have any sort of contact details? Because we're making this video for you, but also for others. So if someone watches this video or listens to this podcast and they say, okay, James said a lot of interesting things, and he mentioned about the type of person that he wants to reach with his teachers. So he's my guy. And now that I've been impressed by James, I want to go and find out about him and talk to him. So how can someone do that? What's the next step for someone to speak with you?
Well, I think the Gap app, Robert, that we talked about, that's been a project I've been working on. I do believe that itself is a big part of this. I think that, as I said, the students or recently graduated students who might be in that gap where they, kind of, they know that they want to get somewhere, but they don't see the path. I think that factors in, but I've also bought a domain teacher connection plan just yesterday. So, I do feel that that articulates a lot of the general idea. But I think that we'll see. We'll put the labels on it a little more specifically as we move forward, but the general purpose and the direction is very, I believe, concrete.
I love it. So we said the Gap app and then teacher connection plan. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And I love what you said there about your faith, how there's, and that's always the thing you think about is, do I have my own free will or things given to me? And it would be boring if it was too much of one or the other, right? If life just gave everything to you, or if you had to figure it out yourself, it's a combination of these factors, right? In the same way that you set up your students for success, you do your best, you show them the way, you give them the tools, but then it's up to them to put in the hard work and build the muscle. And so that way it's kind of both sides of the coin there, getting the work done. So we've been speaking with James Finlen from thegapapp.com and teacherconnectionplan.com. So go to those sites and check out what James has created. You'll be glad you did. And it's been wonderful speaking with you today, James.